In community, I'm not trying to develop an application or a software or something. I'm not trying to find the best features of my application. I'm trying to create as many spaces as possible so that members engage with each other. Some members really engage talking to each other. Some members engage via writing long texts. Some prefer short texts. Like it depends. So we can't expect everyone to engage in the same way. We use Curated Connection in GW. For us, the aim of that, using that tool or creating that initiative, is so that people don't necessarily rely on us for getting to know each other. If you see something is happening more than once, go and create a guideline and put it on the members information hub or like members lounge or wherever your members are finding information. Member highlights, I think it's repeatable and it adds so much value. If you want to be highlighted on our social media, on our newsletter, fill this form. And then because you have a format, you would probably have like a draft social media template. Let's say if it's a community of teachers, so you can ask the member of what is their best tip for engaging students. You just generated a value from the member that will be beneficial for the whole community. Most of the time, founders are like complaining, why don't we have engagement? Why are people not attending our event? Because we have really busy lives, so much happening in the world. Most of us are already overstimulated and then overly like active on like social media, etc. So like we shouldn't aim to create more FOMO for our members. Actually, like how can we make it easier for them to follow up or catch up if they needed to have a break.
Welcome to another season of the Beginner Maps podcast, where we tell you what other community businesses are doing right. Today, I am thrilled to have Ajay with us. Ajay is a community builder who is running her own consulting business. You may have heard of two of her clients, Generalist World and Rosieland, both of whom are much loved private community businesses. She's a community operations and events maestro with that. So this episode will be very tactical. Thank you so much for joining us, Ajay, and sharing your insights here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get going.
Yay! How would you describe the people who join private communities like Childless World or Rosieland? Like, is there a common motivation or a thread running across all these people?
I guess for most of my clients, and like for my current clients and in the past, I always work for communities that bring people together around their professions. And then it's like a support or peer group for people if they're feeling isolated with something. For example, for Generalist World, people are feeling a little bit isolated or outlined about their like careers if they pivoted or like if they're not able to find their roles in this very corporate world. So they join GW to find people like them, and then it make them feel less alone. And in other cases, like I work with a lot of communities who are creating spaces for founders or like freelancers, remote workers. Again, these people usually struggle with isolation and then not having that kind of colleagues. So in my case, it was always feeling like finding support, especially peer support and peer accountability, like the main motivation for people.
Hmm. I think that is very true, and it's especially helpful because I feel that online communities are uniquely poised to help with this because they're the only way people can connect with other people without any barriers of location. So you can truly connect with somebody who has a similar motivation or very similar in a very similar profession as you are.
Yeah, exactly. That was the main reason I went into, like, I have joined the community myself as a freelancer, and then I landed in, like, I found myself in community industry as well. I was feeling very isolated, starting my own business, being a freelancer, and then I found a community for freelancers focusing on their mental health. And then by being active there, I realized actually I can do this myself for helping other or like bringing other people together as well.
I love it. So you discovered the magic of community first and then decided to make it your work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about your unique superpower, which is basically community operations and events. So these are the things that you're helping your clients with a lot, and I feel like people can learn a lot from you because not everybody can do these right. So can you tell me what like if you were talking to a community builder or if there's like a if a new person wanted to start a private community business, what would you tell them about community operations that they might not know?
I guess the reason that I find it really interesting and then kind of easier than maybe others about like operations and operation management is that it might be relevant to that I've studied engineering and then I done a little bit of marketing development and then I pivoted to community profession. So it all like I do enjoy thinking about the processes. What would I tell someone who's just starting is I guess I would first say that like don't overthink it and then don't try to because it is different from engineering. If you're producing something, then you probably need to overthink or pre-think, pre-plan lots of things before you start your production. But community is not like that. Community is more organic, more fluid. And then we always talk about like don't build for your members, but build with them. So I guess what I would say is that like don't overthink and be a perfectionist when just starting to build your community, but do log everything if you can. So, for example, you're running your first event and it's only a couple of people. You don't have to automate anything or you don't have to create a process for it. But if you take notes in the early stages, then it will be easier for you to look back and then think about what went good, what could have been better. And then if you want to do another event, and let's say you've done a networking event and then you want to run it next month again. So you can easily duplicate things, you can easily duplicate the process. If you have a log or if you document things on the go, then it will be easier when you're growing. So I guess that would be my main thing to start with.
So the first thing that people can do is just start creating documentation.
Yeah. But I mean, I encountered a lot of people who fell into the trap of over planning, especially with operations. That makes it. I mean, that makes the progress really slow, because then if you can't start, then you can't grow. Yeah. So I guess finding the balance on like doing things like streamlining things, but also just like being agile at the same time.
Can you like tell me, maybe give an example using an example with one of your clients, like how did you like when you joined them as a consultant, like what are the big, I don't know, the big goals or the big pieces that you look at and try to fix, say in the first 3 months or so?
I think the best example is from General's World. So Millie, the founder of General's World, she hired me when she came to a point that she needed extra help. So she was managing everything on her own as a solo builder and solo founder. But then after a point, she thought that, okay, I can help, I can have some help with events so that I can spend my time and resources in other places in the community, which makes sense. And I think she's very clever with that, that she started things slowly so that like she didn't think about beforehand. Like when when a need emerged, then she tried to find a solution. The first thing I did was understanding how she run things so that I can give my input on improving things if needed, and also I can like so that she can delegate it to me. Specifically on events, what I did is that went and looked at the past events, and then I looked at like how she created the event registrations forms, how she's getting members into the events, how she's promoting the events, what is the process for her. And then I gave some recommendations. The biggest one, for example, was in GW, we do lots of member-led events. And then in the past, she was doing them by, so when someone wanted to host an event, then they were arranging the date and time not spontaneously, but ad hoc. So they were deciding on, okay, when are you available, etc. What I did is,
Sorry, let's hold on that train of thought for a minute, but it's interesting. What type of member-led events are you generally hosting at GW?
these specific ones are called hot seats. So they're like mastermind events when one person, one member comes and explain their challenge and others in the room just helping them out. So as the moderator or the event host, I'm there to make sure that everyone is listening to each other, but I'm not usually providing too much input to the event itself, mostly for moderation purposes. And like the first thing I did was dedicating a day on the week for those events, and then creating a booking form and a Calendly integration. So, and then having that available on the members lounge. So now that it's very easy for for a member to find the page and then book a hot seat event for themselves. So they don't have to contact me to arrange the date, etc. So everything is written there, how it's run, etc. Of course, if they still have a question, they reach out. But usually what I do is, based on the frequently asked questions, I go and update the guidelines or the explanations as well. That's I did for a previous client as well. We were doing weekly workshops for the community, and most of the workshop hosts were selected within the members. But because I work as a freelancer most of the time, or as a consultant, it's not that my full calendar is dedicated to the client, right? So what I do is I created a Notion database. I created the available slots, available dates for the events. I blocked the ones that I'm hosting, like networking events, for example. And then when I'm reaching out to guest speakers, I'm sending them this calendar database and saying, telling them, please select a date from this list. So it makes things faster and easier. And then when you have like a speaker bio or a speaker sheet, for example, if it's formatted in a way, it's easy for the speaker to fill that in, and then you don't have to always create the event page from scratch. You can copy paste most of the things. So making things repeatable as much as possible, I guess.
Hmm. I really like this, and member-led events are a personal interest of mine because they're if you get member-led events right in a community, then it just puts the community on steroids because now your community can scale essentially without you at the center. You're putting your members at the center, and they're creating value for each other, which is what communities are all about. I need to just dig deeper in here. So,
Sure.
What do you think what is your process for creating or finding speakers for these events? Like, is it mostly inbound or mostly outbound? And if outbound, then how do you select who to reach out to?
This really depends on the structure of the community, budget of the community for and also this really depends on what are you doing this event as well. For example, if you're doing the workshops in a peer community, if you're doing workshops so that members are teaching each other their own skills or teaching their expertise to the others, then my first instinct then would go and source the guests within members so that they can, because it highlights their profile, it highlights their expertise, and then also it helps them to connect with other members. And also most of the time it helps them to practice especially if they want to maybe get better at hosting workshops or in public speaking, for example. You can create a space for them, like a safer space for them to practice maybe a framework that they're developing, etc. So if the aim of the event calendar or the community events mainly that members are engaging with each other, then I would go with in like sourcing it within the community. If your community events more for growing your community, so having so it so if you have external speakers, it means that you're creating value for your members, yes, but then also you can reach out to new audience, right? So it's eventually act as a marketing event. Then it comes down to your marketing strategy. What are your content pillars? What is your budget so that you can like what kind of a speaker you can get, and yeah, what would your members want, like what do they trying to develop as a skill, so that you can go and find those kind of speakers. I was going
Like
to mention
moderating
something
these
but I
events.
forgot.
No, that's
So,
okay. Because I've got another question for you. So, moderating these events must be a really critical part of this, right? Because otherwise, first-time speakers or inexperienced speakers may just start speaking and go on for say 30 or 45 minutes without really engaging with the audience, and that is not going to be a really interesting event for anybody. So how do you do that and work with speakers?
hmm good question. I guess I always do a dry run, like a practice event where we go over the agenda, and then especially if we're doing a virtual event, I do like to use Butter as my main event platform for community events as well. And most of the time, the speakers are not experienced with Butter, so I just show them around and I show them the capabilities, and then I help them to create the agenda as well. Yeah, with Butter, like the function, agenda function, and then, if they so if I sense that their workshop or speech is not engaging enough, I look for opportunities to, for example, can we create a poll, or like can we do a breakout sessions, etc. So out I try to find out opportunities to make it more engaging. If but again, like parentheses here is that if the aim of the event is engaging members. If you're running a masterclass, it's a masterclass. People are joining to learn something. So it doesn't always have to be engaging. I guess that's my, pet peeve, because people are obsessed about being engaging a lot, or like engagement a lot. I'm like, it doesn't always have to be engaging. So
Okay.
I try to emphasize that all the time. And I guess if they're a first time speaker, then
Is there
I
a
mean, if
common problem with first time, like common mistake that first time speakers mostly do?
well, I don't know. I didn't have too much. I mean, I'm a very nervous public speaker myself as well. So that's why I haven't realized any common mistakes or any common challenges that I guess excitement or nervousness might be a problem. But then probably I'm being their co-host, especially their technical co-host, makes it easier for them, so they don't have to deal with the chat, or they don't have to deal with the functionalities of the platform, so they can only focus on explaining what they already know a lot about. So I try to make them comfortable as much as possible as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice to know. And you made a really good point there about, how not all events need to be focused on engagement. Sometimes it can just be about the speaker sharing their expertise.
Exactly. I really like what Butter community does with sandbox events. For example, they open a space for their members, Butter community members. If you want to practice a framework or a workshop format, and then you do that, and then attendees give you feedback about it. So it's like a win-win. Like you practice, you get constructive feedback, and then the attendees also learn something from your expertise, from what you're presenting. Um, I do try to do things like that within the community with members, because eventually this is how they can support each other. So
Yeah. Let's talk about the time it takes for producing these events. And one of the things that you do as a community when you come into community operations is when you streamline things, it helps in reducing the time that it takes to produce anything and increases the capacity of the team. So can you give me some numbers of, before and after for any community-led event series that you might have worked on?
um there is one example that is not about one of my clients, but I think this is I think that is the best case study for a recurrent community event, which is Freelancer Magazine's Coworking sessions. So they have started, the founder of Freelancer Magazine was hosting these co-working sessions. And then because they're very repeatable at the same time every day, and then hosting a co-working session doesn't require too much moderation because most of the time people are just working during the Pomodoro timer. After a while, when things are streamlined, when most of the members were recurrent, most of the members were knowing each other and then the structure, she started accepting volunteers to host the event. That, I mean, one event lasts 2 hours. And then if you consider that she was hosting three days of co-working, and then you think about the preparation time and then maybe rest time after the event as well, I'm sure that it saved her like easily 8 hours a week. And the volunteers, like I'm one of the volunteered co-working hosts as well. And I gain from it too, because then every Monday she sends a newsletter, your hosts this week. It has my picture, it has my link, so people can connect with me. I have my picture and my title on the actual Freelancer magazine every issue, saying that these are our volunteers. We thank them. So it gives me a profile boost. I feel so happy because then I'm supporting a community that I care about, and then it saves her time. And thanks to that, for example, last year it was 3 sessions a week. Now it's a 4 sessions a week because people like it. It's repeatable, and then you can add new sessions if you want to. So that's one of the best examples that I see as a community-led event series. And one thing I want to add, especially for recurrent events or recurrent activities, it doesn't have to be an event as well. I guess community builders are kind of concerned about making it monotonous or like making it boring. Like they might be thinking that if I use the same event structure every time, people like my members might get boring. But actually, it's not always the case because we like rituals and we like building habits. So we have in GW, we have our monthly speed networking sessions every last Tuesday of the month, same day, same time. We do 2 sessions for 2 different time zones. The format is the same. Most of the time, I just duplicate the event and then I don't even change the event description. If we get a feedback about a question, if I get a question, then I realize, okay, this is something that I need to add to the event description because it means that like if only one person didn't understand how it works, it means that it's not a good description, right? So I try to improve it. But other than that, it's repeated. It's easy for me. It's easy for attendees. Like no surprises is sometimes a good thing because then they can build habits. So instead of adapting, they can just focus on enjoying the event and enjoying the experience. So I think we kind of don't have to shy away from repeating things and rituals.
That's an interesting point, and I really like this because as a community member, I also enjoy having, knowing that, this will happen on this day, like whether I join it or not, like whether I'm missing it, let's say I'm not able to make it on a few weeks, but if I know that Thursday 9 p.m., like I can count on this event happening, then it's easier for me. So
Yeah,
I'll probably join it whenever I am actually available for it.
exactly. And also it kind of creates trust as well, because then let's say if you missed a week, you know that it will be there next week as well. So you don't feel the fear of missing out all the time, hopefully.
Right.
I think I really like Millie, the founder of General's World, about this as well. Like she's very concerned about creating like a calm community experience. I care about that a lot too. Like most of the time, founders are like complaining, why don't we have engagement? Why are people not attending our event? Because we have really busy lives, so much happening in the world. Most of us are already overstimulated and then overly like active on like social media, etc. So it's like we shouldn't aim to create more FOMO for our members. Actually, like how can we make it easier for them to follow up or catch up if they needed to have a break? How can we make it easy to catch up with the, like maybe we can send like a roundup newsletter, or have, I don't know, have rituals to make it easy for them to get back into the routine. I think it's important.
This is a fantastic point, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but I've been guilty of trying to create FOMO for events in order to drive up the attendance because I feel like, success of my event is like very much dependent upon how many people are attending it live, and that's my main metric for success for an event. So, at what point do you say people should be worried about low attendance at events, and you know at what when should they not be worried?
Let's see. So I'm thinking of, maybe you're doing like a marketing event, right? And then you created a big budget for the speaker, for promoting it. So if you're doing a marketing activity, of course you are concerned about the return of investment. You might be concerned about the number of people who are joining live. But then again, even after that, you have lots of opportunities to repurpose the content recording to reach out new people. I guess I would only be concerned if it's like you really need a certain number of people to run an activity or something on a workshop, or
Mhm, mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah. So basically, what I'm taking away is that I can be more calm about the attendance rates and not freak out about it as much. Yeah.
Definitely be calm about things, I guess. Yeah, and I can say that like as this is something we talk about most of the community professionals as well. So after COVID, after the pandemic, after the boom of like webinars and online events, people definitely got into an event burnout, and it's more than normal. People want to go and experience in-person relationships or in-person experiences now. So yeah, I guess it's normal to expect a drop. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't want to kind of like do like a trending, like a a forecast on trends, etc. I don't have any data or numbers on that, but I guess this is the case on people are just having so many meetings online. So I guess it's more than normal to expect them not maybe sometimes skip the online events.
Yeah. Yeah. I like this. I like this way of thinking about the attendance. And this brings me nicely to my next topic of discussion, which is doing experiments and knowing when to shut down new initiatives. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, how do you shut down a new initiative that has like a few members in it, but not enough to make it, keep it going? At
Mm-hmm.
what point do you like? How do you understand like, it's not working?
Mm-hmm. I guess one would be asking for feedback. So also, like, how do you define not working on your terms, right? So, or how do you define working for an initiative? So if you're,
How do you define that?
yeah, I mean, again, what is the aim of that initiative? Like, let's say for curated connections, right? We use curated connection in GW. For us, the aim of that using that tool or creating that initiative is so that people don't necessarily rely on us for getting to know each other, because we have questions and then they get matched frequently. So there is an extra opportunity for them to connect one-to-one rather than us introducing them to each other. And then what is our working condition for that is that people are actually signing up. This is the first thing. People are get excited about it. People don't think it's useless or like, oh, I don't need this. If we see that no one is signing up for it, then okay, we can understand that it's not working. And then the other one is asking for feedback. So maybe after a month or like maybe after a couple of months, send an email or like ask for one-to-one of like, what is your feedback? Do you use this tool? How do you find it? And then they tell us, yes, I use it. I had good interactions thanks to it. Or they say that, no, I didn't like this parts and I want to improve that part. Then I would go and look at that. Can I fix those problems? And then would fixing those problems, do I have capacity for fixing those problems? So again, it comes to the capacity of the community team as well. If you get complaints or if you feel that people are not engaging with that initiative, but also it would really struggle or force your community team's capacity to either moderate it or fix it, then we might drop it.
Right. So what I'm taking away is that whenever you do a new initiative, you focus more on the number of people who feel strongly good about that initiative rather than the total number of people who are participating in it.
Yeah.
So if five people are participating and they're like, yeah, I love this, and the other 100 people are not, then even then you would keep that going.
Yeah, I think I would. If keeping it doesn't require my resources, I would keep it. If it's kind of maybe run by itself because it's like an external platforms, like again, curated connections, or let's say for like freelancer magazine coworking or a member-led coworking, like it's run itself and then only the same 10 people joining. But then there is, I mean, if it doesn't hurt my capacity as a community team, then I don't need to like shut it down. I don't think that it's I don't feel like someone needs or like the X percentage of members need to use it to make it successful. Because again, in community, I'm not trying to develop an application or a software or something. I'm not trying to find the best features of my application. I am trying to create as many spaces as possible so that members engage with each other. Some members really engage talking to each other. Some members engage via writing long texts. Some prefer short texts. Like it depends. So we can't expect everyone to engage in the same way.
Yeah, this this is such a good insight. So what you basically need when, like this is giving me a new framework that I hadn't thought of in building private communities or paid communities, is that like what you really need is a lot of different initiatives that require like that are low effort and that can engage like different segments of your people.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would launch like five, if you can launch five different initiatives like these and have like a few people in them, but not like a majority of your community, but even a few people joining all of these, then you've got a good program altogether.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because again, I mean, I'm always talking about my own experiences, right? So maybe if the aim of the community is very specific, very niche, then you might need people to engage in certain way. But in the case of like peer communities, peer support communities, some people join so that they can access resources like all the articles or like the guidebooks and the workshop recordings. So maybe they're not in a phase in their life to engage with other people. So it would be, but isn't that we provide value? We provide value. So it would be not meaningful to disregard their way of utilizing the value that we're providing.
Mm-hmm. I like this. So, okay, I want to end this interview by trying to like brainstorm a list of these low effort initiatives that the listener can try in their own communities in order to, engage like a few members. We already mentioned one, which is Curated Connections, which is our own tool, and it helps create one-on-one networking programs. We'll be linking to it in the show notes so that people, listeners, can find it. Thank you so much for shouting out.
We love it.
Thank you. And then the other one that you mentioned, big one, was the co-working session. Now, super quick, like how should somebody run this co-working session? Which platform to use? And yeah.
Well, there are so many opportunities with this one as well. So, for example, the one that Freelancer Magazine is just running on Zoom, and then someone is moderating the thing. But there are lots of
But do they share like Zoom password with the person who is moderating? Like,
yeah, you need to log in, and then it requires a little
yeah,
bit like fiddling, so it's not actually so
fine.
easy all the time. But there are a lot of like virtual co-working apps that are looking forward to work with communities so that you have like a room, co-working room, and then also there are a lot of free versions of like remote team. I guess my tip is that searching for remote team apps or solutions, because when people are trying to solve a problem for like a remote working team, you can actually use this for your online community too. There is like a shared timer that I like. I think it's called Cuckoo or something. It's like a shared Pomodoro timer. And then you don't have to even have a virtual, like a video conference for it. You can run it on the link just. So for example, every member can just start their timer, write on the Slack or the community platform, I'm starting a Pomodoro, who wants to join me? So it's very easy. I think quick things is creating opportunities for members to lead things, documenting things, so creating guidelines. If you see something is happening more than once, go and create a guideline and put it on the members information hub or like members lounge or wherever your members are finding information, and then say that, would you like to run this? Here's what you need to do, and then just like follow the steps. And the thing I like about AI now, that like I'm a person who hates documenting things or hates writing like step by step things. English is not my main language. I don't like writing things. But what I like about AI is that it doesn't have to be personalized. It is a guidebook, right? It's a step by step, just a list. So I just get help from AI and then document lots of things, and then it's easy to understand for members. And again, if you get a question, you can go and improve it. Like it doesn't have to be perfect when you're just launching it. And utilizing forms or like apps like Calendly or like similar booking apps. So one thing we did again for GW is we create the Google form. When people join, if they want to be on the members map, they share their name, contact details, and their location. And it goes into a Google Sheet. And then from that Google Sheet, we add them to the Google Map. Easy. It takes 5 minutes a week or something. Not too much time. I'm sure it can even be automated with Zapier or something like that. But my rule is that if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. So it doesn't take too much of time. It's still manageable. So I'm not going to spend hours to try to make it automated. But if something starts to get too much of my time, then I look for opportunities to automate it or delegate it.
I like this. Okay. So good tips here. And back to the brainstorm about, small effort initiatives that, repeatable initiatives that
Yeah.
listeners can start in their communities. Um, Anything else that, you've worked on or you've seen working?
Member highlights, I think it's repeatable and it adds so much value. So you can do that within the community, you can do that externally, depending on the profile of your members. Like you can have, again, a Google form of like, if you want to be highlighted on our social media, on our newsletter, fill this form, what do you want to promote, especially if it's like a entrepreneurship community or like a freelance community, or you can have that. And then because you have a format, you would probably have like a draft social media template, and then you can just create member highlights of that.
How do I create a member highlight in a way in which it's not only beneficial for the person who's being highlighted, but also beneficial to the other members of the community? Yeah.
Well, you can ask them, okay, let's have an example of a community. Let's say if it's a community of teachers. So you can ask the member of what is their best tip for engaging students. So you just generated a value from the member that will be beneficial for the whole community. And the thing I like about it, if you have a repeatable format, let's say you ask everyone their favorite book on some topic, right? At the end of the year, you can just curate all the list, and then you can just say, here is 50 books from our community that we recommend. Like,
Yeah.
I like Rosie called that Rosie of Rosieland called this like community flywheels. And I like that. So you ask a question within the community, you curate the answers, you share the curated resource, you ask for more advice or more feedback or more answers, and then you curate it back. And then it eventually helps you create create external content as that would act as a marketing content to grow your community business as well.
I like this. This is really good. I think we've got some really good initiatives for the listeners. Anything else?
I think event roundups, event summaries, again with AI or like with tools like Butter. I always shout out the Butter. It's my favorite platform. Butter just create, like if you record an event, Butter creates an automated summary from the transcript. So it's easy. Or you can have someone, if you have resources or if you have a budget, you can have someone to professionally edit the transcript and then create like blog posts from it as well. And you can share snippets. You can have, well, we're trialing local meetups now. For example, with GW, we have population. So we have some regions in the world, especially in the UK and in the US, that some of our members are populated. But we're trying to encourage people that if you're up for meeting just even with one person, trying to encourage them to launch a local meetup, because we believe that it is valuable to have a coffee with someone and then meet them in person. So if they are believing the same as well, we're trying to launch it. And then to make it, so currently, I guess I'm working on making it more streamlined with maybe having a form or maybe having a guideline. And then maybe if people can add their own events to the calendar instead of me creating the events. So that can be an idea. You can have office hours, or you can have like game or like social events and try that, see that if it's working for people or not. We do Slack AMAs, so this is like asynchronous version of, because we have a global community in GW, so trying to tap into all time zones and like all availabilities. So we do asynchronous AMAs, and then we have a dedicated channel now It means that someone is introducing themselves and then introducing their background and expertise and say that you can ask me anything about this and this and that. And then people are just like commenting and then they provide resources or their advice. I think that works really well. And then again, it doesn't matter that if like some weeks we get like 50 questions, some weeks we get 5 questions, but as long as it doesn't matter for the member, I wouldn't say it's low engagement. I think it's if there is one even just one value exchange between members, it means that it is valuable to keep it. I like what Nikki does for the community. They host the happy hour. Oh, you're in that community as well. I love what they do with the happy hour. I'm not always able to attend, but I think it is a very fun initiative. And then you just go and chat with the community members without any agenda, and then you can be silly or like you can have dumb questions. And again, like it doesn't have to be crowded or something. It's an opportunity for people to have one-to-one conversations. You can trial watch parties, or you can trial online events, online game evenings, maybe. Book clubs. You can trial book clubs. I like book clubs, especially if people are really into like learning together. I guess book clubs can be better. One of my friends is doing in the freelancer community. They do a pod club, so it is just a podcast every month, a podcast episode. They listen and then go and discuss. So that was one thing. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah. This is good. These are a solid list of, things that people can run in their paid communities. And if if the communities that I'm a part of, they start doing all of these, like it would immediately at least 5x the value that I'm receiving as a customer and a community member from them. So yeah, 100% agree with you. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Edge.
no worries. Well, I'm sure there are more ideas out there, but like these are the things that I could think of now. Yeah.
Yeah, no, these are great. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. And you came up with all of these on the spot. Sorry to put you on the spot, but
Oh, it's okay. It helps.
you did great.
It helps me to be less lazy brain wise.
No, you're very, smart community builder. You're I think your engineering background and your systems thinking really shows when you talk about communities and the way you think about them. So it's a really new type of a perspective to showcase on this podcast, the way I've never done before. So thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining us.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Okay, and anything that you would like listeners to know about, or anything that any way they can learn more about you or work with you?
Well, I'm most active on LinkedIn, so always happy to connect anyone on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm hosting lots of events nowadays as well. So if they follow me on LinkedIn, I have my weekly newsletter where I share a curated event calendar for freelancers and community builders. I include my own events like networking events, etc., and also the events that people submit as well. So yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. And I'm just thinking, is that like something that I wanted to share, but not? But I guess my main tip always is that like not overthinking and repurposing things, and yeah, not trying to make it perfect. Like just experimenting, doing, trying, and then always go in line with your capacity, and then not try to like overgive, because if the concern is that would the members be pissed off if we ask them for volunteering, for example, I think no, because when you increase belonging, when you include members, you increase belonging, and then this is the base of, this is how you build a community, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. This is such a good note to end this interview on. Thank you so much again for joining us on this call and sharing all of your amazing community building insights with us.
Thank you for having me.